Dean Katanak, aka the Revolutionary Yogi, aka Young Patanjali from SavvyZen.com. And have you heard about the mass awakening happening in yoga right now? Maybe from your favorite spiritual or yoga blogger, you've heard about the Lightworker Revolution, the change in global consciousness since the COVID-19 pandemic or since 2012. There are a million different framings. The Donald Trump QAnon awakening, the Joe Biden awakening. There's a million awakenings happening. And I'm here today to tell you through this video and through this 1,500 word article, through not just statistics, but through anecdotal tests that you can perform right now today, that awakening is not occurring. So one of the main suspicions that I have with this awakening and those who are telling us about it is that they never define the awakening. There's always this broad awakening that there's people waking up to the reality of the government and light, but we never really get a distinct start point and end point, and how many people are awake versus not awake, and what's the process of getting there other than through their products. And it's very weird when there's no information about being awakened, and when the information they do provide is very broad and not really real. And as we'll see, we're going to talk about government and religion. And when we look at those numbers, the number of deaths by government, the number of religious people still in the world, it will astonish you. Just as a little spoiler alert, over 200 million killed in the 20th century by government. But we'll get to that later. So there are two different ways I think that this message is spread. First of all, it's just a sales funnel technique that these people do it because they know it's an opposition marketing technique. They know that you right now maybe live some place like a bumfuck place like Alabama or northern Minnesota or Utah, and you're surrounded by or you're living with your family or you're with friends that haven't awoken yet. They haven't awakened, and they know that you want that and that you crave that and you are not maybe fulfilled with that in your life. And they have this little trickling sales funnel that will take you to this community where maybe you can start to feel that, but only if you pay $19.99 or go through all these advertisements or whatever, pitch they have. There's like a gate that you have to walk through. Sometimes it's easy to walk through the gate. Other times you have to do a lot to get through the gatekeeper. So there's that. There's the sales funnel thing, which I think is, I can't really give a good estimate, but I'll let you guys make that distinction once I name the second side. And the second side is where people are doing it because they just are in ignorance. They're not in nescience. They're in ignorance because they have built a life that is like they're living in a bunker and they don't really have an accurate perception of reality. And this is a very easy thing to happen, and it's not wrong. But as you become more spiritual, you're automatically going to drop negative people from your life. You're going to stop consuming negative media and start consuming positive media. If you live somewhere with silly, Christians, you're going to move to a more progressive city. You're going to go to events that align with you. You're going to travel places where people align with you. You're not going to travel to, you're not going to travel to, northern Utah or somewhere. You're going to live a life that is spiritual. And if you refuse to read and to really, pry down deep and to look, and it's honestly just looking and observing about what's going on in the world, you're going to have this idea that there's this awakening happening because everyone around you is awakening. And it's very silly that we've been caught in that. And I'd like to discuss right now, right off the bat, about having an accurate perception of reality. And I'll read right from the article. And having an accurate perception of reality should be the highest goal, one of the highest goals of yoga and magic. Like, do you see what's happening around you? Do you have an accurate perception of reality? Or are you living in a bubble? And I'm going to read off a statistic right now done by the University of Hawaii that concluded that 169 innocent people died in the 20th century from governments. And that doesn't include the tens of millions of more soldiers coerced into, dying through whatever war that was being done. So I would say one of the first steps, if we want to talk about the end goal of the awakening, one of the first steps, and I think you would agree with me. Let me know in the comments below if any of this, if you don't agree with this, if you do, whatever you think, just let me know. If you get to this point, say what's up. That'd be cool. I'm trying to get some more engagement and meet people. I'm trying to get into the echo chamber. And losing my train of thought. And the first thing that we need for a global awakening, I would say, would first be the end of assault and theft of human beings. And then close second to that, the assault and theft of animals and the planet. I mean, I think that's a really good start, is to stopping this, the end of violence and the end of theft of, and with the planet, things get a little bit more. With animals and the planet, things get a little bit more murky and gray, like can we build roads? And then that can be discussed. But just a general appreciation of nonviolence. And that has failed us completely. As I just said, 200 million people have died in the 20th century. And we're just getting started in the 20th century. Or 21st century. 200 million people died. And but for some reason, most people who are calling for this awakening or who are awakened want more government. They love government. Government this, Joe Biden this, Donald Trump this. And they don't realize that one of the main roots that's holding back this mass global awakening is the concept of government. Why do we need government? And I'm going to ask a question to you right now. How hard is it for you on a daily basis not to assault people and steal from people? Probably not very hard, right? It's probably pretty easy to not, punch people in the face or shoot people. And I found it pretty easy myself. How easy is it to not hurt animals or to not hurt the planet? Probably not very hard. And then how hard would it be to be able to do that on a worldwide basis? And probably not very hard. And what's holding that back? What's the choke in the bottle what's the chokehold that's holding this back? And a lot of that chokehold is government. And I'm sure that you're not an anarchist like I am, but the purpose of government is control. But if we can actually awaken, if the awakening actually occurs, and the first tenet of being an awakened people is having not needing a government and not killing people and stealing from people, then what is really the point of government if we're all, not hurting each other? And I'm sure your response would be charity and making sure everyone's equal. And that's something that's also very simple. Do you think that people have the right to food, clothes, and shelter? Yes. And it's probably going to be pretty hard to find someone that doesn't say yes to that. They may be a Republican and be like, well, no. But once again, this all comes back to education. And I'm going to read from right here. Is the world, and so let's talk about the global awakening. We're talking about global awakening. And are we having a global awakening? Is the world moving toward or away from authority and hierarchy? Modern weaponry and surveillance make it easier than ever to kill people. Big tech's ability to data collect, spy, and influence culture grants the intelligence community unimaginable power. The rise of corporations shows how malignant hierarchical structures can enslave millions of workers to purposeless work. But the light work revolution is happening, everybody. Still, all these things are getting worse. More control is manifesting. If you actually observe what's going on in the government, and no, Joe Biden is not going to fix that. Donald Trump is not going to fix that. Those 200 million deaths were enacted by all types of government. Democratic governments, socialist governments, communist governments, fascist governments of all types. We killed over 1 million. The United States of America killed over 1 million innocent people in Vietnam. They killed over 1 million people in the war on terror died. What about all the people, if you're British, how about all the people that died in India? And I mean, it never ends. Or all the people that died in World War II on the other side, just through senseless war. And, just governments clashing. And then, the big people, Nazis and Mao and Russia. It's scary the amount of death that occurred, all in the name of government and authority. And for some reason, the yoga community can't give that up because they are stuck in this polarity between Democrats and Republicans. They're like, well, I'm not a Republican, so I must be a Democrat. And it's like, wait, we don't have to be stuck in these polarities, because wanting to give to people and wanting to help people has nothing to do with drones. It has nothing to do with the military state and with surveillance and all these other things that both sides are bipartisan, both sides love. So, and the yoga community's solutions and the spiritual community solutions for this are almost non-existent. They have no way or no care at all about dismantling the government or the military, the police force. And their main solution is to go vote for your local politician. But as we've seen, Hitler got voted in. Mao was Democrat. Everyone was almost all the worst leaders you've heard of that are on that list were democratically voted in. So wait, is that the solution? Because can a group of dumb people elect a dumb person like a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden? You can't tell me that out of a nation of 350 million people that Joe fucking Biden and Donald fucking Trump are the best solutions. You'd have to be fucking high to like argue that. If it wasn't all these narratives and games and the lesser of two evil argument and the two-party system, you look very silly. But that's the norm right now. That's the norm in the community. Vote Democrat or vote Republican. There's this one dude I saw that was just like going crazy about Trump and yoga, and I was like, dude, what? Anyway, so I think that's a good analysis of the government section. That's one area that we as yogis could use yoga's infinite power to start to break through some of those hierarchical structures that government presents. We can imagine a world where there doesn't have to be authority or hierarchy, and we all live on not a level playing field, but on the same field, and we all coexist together, and we all create together, and we're all not harming each other or harming the earth. And if some person has a little bit more, then whatever. But as long as everyone's okay and has an opportunity to do something, then like, what's the issue? But so the next part is, and just as a quick little aside, as an argument that I've heard is that like, yo, man, yeah, we're fine with breaking up the military and the police, but we need to keep our social programs. But wait. To have social programs, you're going to need a mandatory taxation system. And with a mandatory taxation system, you're going to have to enact that with violence. Thus, the military and police or private mercenaries or whoever. Or the bankers that will just delete your life and delete everything you own. But someone's going to have to come kick you out of your property that gets deleted. And who are those people going to be? The police and the military. So we can't really get rid of those. You can't have one. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So let's talk about religion now. And the solution to the government and to living an autonomous life as a group, a collective group of individuals living in coexistence in a peaceful way, is just education. It's really just education and a little bit of action. It's just everyone educating themselves and understanding a few different principles, and we can all have our differences. We can have a ton of differences, but just agreeing not to hurt each other and steal from each other and being a generally charitable person. If your people in your community are struggling, lift them up. It's not very hard, but apparently it is. So let's talk about the actual numbers of the mass awakening. I know this is going to be a good section. Like, if you've made it this far, this blew my mind. As I was doing this, I was like, whoa. A quick Google search will tell you that 6.7 out of the world's 7.8 billion, the billion's total population, the world's 7.8 million total population adhere to a major world religion. The baggage, narratives, and programming that religions bring are detrimental to the cause of promoting a world of non-violence. Period. Exclusionary philosophies about ascension / heaven create an us versus them mentality. I mean, one of the easiest ways, as we've seen throughout history, is to say, we're getting into heaven and you're not. That's just going to create a hatred and a separation automatically. We have the way to heaven and you guys don't. That can't come with us. If we're making this mass global awakening, some people going to heaven and some people not going to heaven, that's not a thing. And that's why I'm calling for deducing this down to very simple things about nonviolence and charity. That's it. Live your life how you want, believe what you want, do what you want. But let's just get that right before we start worrying about all this stuff. But that's automatically going to create problems. Second, believing in most religious stories shows the willingness to enter cognitive dissonance. I mean, that's obvious that if you believe that there's you believe if you believe the bullshit stories in religion, if you're a Christian, Muslim, you follow Judaism, Hinduism, and you actually believe, it's not just a metaphor, you actually believe it, you are in a state of cognitive dissonance. No ifs, ands, or buts. We can argue it all day. And I'm not going to argue with you because you're an idiot. And we don't have time for that because I actually want a mass global awakening. And you don't, because you want to live in exclusionary fairy tale land where you elevate yourself and live a life of forced altruism and pseudo altruism and push it upon others. So that's also a problem, everybody, is that if you're living a fairy tale, you can't really awaken. If you have one area of your life, you could be doing everything else right. But if you believe there's a he God in the sky and he made us all and he had a son and there's Mary and blah, 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 you're off track. You're not just off track. You haven't even started yet. And then the guilt shame programming enacted by all religions manifests a deep repression, which can lead to violence. I mean, a lot of our violence is societal programming in this, for early childhood programming that represses us. Sexual repression, emotional repression, familial repression, just the repression of creativity in general. Instead of just focusing as hard as they could on nonviolence and charity, there's all these little nuanced rules. And that's what's really cool about yoga. And what I'm getting into an article that's going to be posted soon called The Negative Influence of Patanjali, because Patanjali said that if you become enlightened enough, all ethics will just come to you. But the problem is that even if we become enlightened today, the media is too strong and our programming is too strong that it's going to be corrupted. But we'll get into that later. So in general, that is why, and more posts will be dedicated to this, but these systems and these religions cannot come with us, everybody. This is not okay. Like this, if you want the mass global awakening, that isn't going to happen. And only 15% of the population does not adhere to a major world religion, which marks all those boxes I just said. They're exclusionary, they make you believe dumb shit that isn't real, and they do shame programming. Those aren't healthy attributes, and those take a lot of work to get rid of. I know, luckily, I didn't have to do very much. I was pretty detached from religion, but what I did have to do was pretty hard. And it's all around us, the Christian programming and all these books in our society, everything around us. It's a daily fight. So, now a little bit more math, everybody. So the 1.1 billion not adherent individuals include atheists, agnostics, and people who don't identify or care about religion. The atheists aren't going to help everybody. They're just as big of idiots. They're off in la land. Oh yeah, God doesn't exist. Blah blah blah. They're just as lost, if not more lost, because they haven't felt the presence of the divine, of God, of spirit, of connection, of nature. They haven't felt They haven't experienced the synchronicities and the coincidences and the cracks in the simulation that can't be explained by anything else because they haven't gone deep enough yet. And then there's the agnostics, and the agnostics aren't really going to help either because they don't even know what they believe. They don't have the courage to say what they believe. They can't say I believe in a genderless energy that is in everything and maybe has consciousness. They can't even get a rough explanation. They're just like, yeah, I don't know. Or they say I'm agnostic because they're still scared. So they're not going to help. So how many people are left then? And then that number also includes people that don't identify with anything, which I think is probably the majority of that. So I'm going to give a very generous number. If there's 1.1 billion people, let's say 300 million of them are awakened or are on the right track, are spiritual, right? We'll say that 300 million are relatively, they're spiritual. They know what's up. They're walking up the trail. And that's way too high of a number. I'll just be honest. That's way too high. But we're just going to start really big. I mean, I would say it's probably a lot less than that. And so now it's the next step. So if we have this 300 million, how many of them, though, are taking real-world, concrete action to awaken the world? And I'm going to just talk about little tiny things like telling people, telling your friends, because that's way too slow. The Christian media, the normal media, government, big tech, they're reaching billions of people at once. It's not a joke. They're not talking to their friends. They're talking to everybody. Individuals creating art and gathering the influence of major world religions have. How many people are doing that? Gathering the influence and creating art to the level of the major world religions. I haven't seen one person do that yet, actually, in the spiritual community. Not even close. Not even remotely close. There hasn't been anything near that. There are a ton of people taking action, but most of it seems to promote sales funnels, entering into hierarchical groups, or ignoring the negativity and problems of the world. So most people have stuff hidden behind paywalls and don't have enough free information to help people get going and get, they don't have, because everyone has their own unique gifts. And these people just hide behind paywalls and throw people a few bones and don't give us what we need from them to continue on our journey if we, fall upon them. So we have the sales funnel people, which is greed. Then we have, because it's not wrong to make money, but you're really going to charge me $100 for a 2-hour yoga workshop online? Really? Then there are individuals who are trying to get people into hierarchical groups, cults, communes, yoga studios, just a general group, front that people just want to be a part of a group. They're trying to get people into a group, like the people online that are creating content. It's all about the group. And the group maybe has some good goals, but it's not for the cause, it's for the group. And then there's the people who are spreading the right message, but they're just ignoring everything. They're getting out good information and doing maybe things for the cause, but they aren't addressing the problems. They're not addressing the muck and swamp. They're just going right through it. And that's also a problem because we can't do that. As I'm saying, these statistics I'm reading, I've never heard about them before, especially in fucking yoga land. So looking at the numbers, I would estimate there are under 100,000 people in the world who've attained spiritual enlightenment, are educated enough to dissolve hierarchy and provide new solutions, aren't in it for the money, and have the courage to take action. If you've watched this far and you want to dispute that number, that there are under 100,000 people that aren't in it for the money, who are spiritually aligned, who have the knowledge of not just yoga, but the Kabbalah and Tarot and numerology. They have the whole picture going for them. So they're giving us an accurate perception, and they have solutions for us also. And they have the courage to spread that out unabashedly. How many people? 100,000 is way too much. I'm just saying 100,000. It's probably way less than that. It's probably closer to 10,000. But we're just going to go with 100,000 because I'm going to remain optimistic. Maybe I don't know what's going on. Excuse me. So let's go with 100,000 people. Our current reality then is 100,000 awakened individuals stretched out across the globe who have no contact with each other, have no game plan, and are starting from ground zero in the fight against big tech, religions, and government. Yeah, is it really happening? Is that it? 100,000 people who have no contact, who aren't a part of a similar group doing random things? Is that really, and we're going to win, and the awakening's happening? No, it should be pretty obvious by now that it's not. So this is a quick test. So this is a quick test for the haters. Not that many haters are going to make it this far, but if you would like to do a test to see where we're at, let's do a test. So if you believe we are progressing, go to your local grocery store. Go somewhere that's random, truly random, and don't go to Whole Foods. Like, go to some place where the masses congregate. A football game, the crappy grocery store in your town, like somewhere random, with that you're just gonna get all types, and slowly but surely ask them questions. Maybe it's not going to be fast, but when you encounter random people, you can add them to the list. And I did this because I was told this. I used to think about this global awakening, but I talked to 100 people over the course of a year or two, and I asked them questions like this. What are your favorite books? How could the world live in peace without government, militaries, and police forces? What are your favorite spiritual modalities you practice daily to help progress toward a higher consciousness? What do you know beyond the basic level about the occult, philosophy, psychology, yoga, anarchism, and nature? How long do you spend in nature each week? Wait, first ask yourself these questions. Can you answer these questions off the top of your head? Do you believe that individual humans have the moral authority to rule over other humans, animals, and the planet? So let's just imagine going to your local supermarket or your local bar and asking people those questions. What kind of responses are you going to get? How many people are going to answer? And think of everyone that walks in there all day. It could be any of them. How many people? So maybe 1 out of 100. Maybe 1 out of 100 could give you a decent answer to one of those questions. And a decent answer, like, what are your favorite books? It's not Deepak Chopra. It's Edwin Byron's Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It's James Joyce. It's Infinite Jest. It's, some of the classics, like the monumental pieces of literature and work that have changed society. Something like that. If that's not on the list, not the crime thriller, not the airport novel. Or how can a world live without government, militaries, and police? If there's any resistance, we're like, oh, well, we can't. We need the government. Wrong. Not an answer. And they'd have to give a discrete answer, and they'd have to be able to, have thought it out. And what are we going to do about the roads? What are we going to do about the sewers? How could the world live? What are some of your favorite spiritual modalities you practice every day to progress toward higher consciousness? That's a great question. Because higher consciousness, you don't get there from just doing a little bit of yoga every day. It's a lot more complicated than that. For real higher consciousness. So probably not going to meet anyone at the supermarket. Like I said, maybe one person the one answer they could give a decent answer. Well, I do yoga and I, meditate. You might get 1 out of 100 saying that. What do you know beyond the basic level about the occult, philosophy, psychology, yoga, anarchism, and nature? Those are all integral things that you need to know about to create an awakened world without hierarchy and control. Each one of those is pivotal. How many people know stuff beyond the basic level of that in your local town? Probably not very many. How long do you spend in nature each week? And this is important because nature is a place to realign, to reassess, to see a place of non-hierarchy and hierarchy and see how they interchange and to just relax. And if you have a relationship with nature, you have a relationship not just with yourself, but higher consciousness. So now we're going to get into the numbers. So maybe 1 out of 100 have a decent answer to those. 1 out of 1,000 maybe have a concrete answers to signal a holistic, knowledgeable, and awakened human being. So maybe 1 out of 1,000 have something good going. Like they can give some good answers to some of those. And you're like, all right, so we got 1 in 1,000. So now I would estimate 1 in 100,000 to 1 in 1 million. 1 out of 100,000 to 1 million people will be able to answer all those questions off the top of their head with answers that don't promote moral control and have a personal website or physical studio where they share their interpretation of this knowledge for free to the masses. Let me read that again. I'm going to read that again. I'm going to get closer. This is the moment, everybody. 1 in 100,000 to 1 million will be able to answer all the close questions off the top of their head with answers that don't promote more control and have a personal website. Have a personal website or a physical studio where they share their interpretation of this knowledge for free to the masses. Because everybody could be awakened. We could have the whole world awakened, but if none of us take action and the bad people who do take action, if they do take action, then we'll lose. So who's actually doing that? And I literally think it's got to be. So once again, I'm going to give the generous estimate. I'm going to say 1 out of 100,000 people have that going on. And when I mean a personal website, I don't mean just like I mean like a website. I mean, they got the plan for everybody. I'm still trying to get to that point. I'm not even there yet. That's what this is. I'm trying to get there, everybody. It's a process. So if we have 1 in 100,000 people, and I think it's more than that, but we'll say 100 out of 100,000 people. So if we divide 7 billion by 100,000, we are left with 70,000 people. Once again, that is very near to the number estimated in the calculations, that it's around 100,000 people in the world. Give or take, if you want to increase that to 300,000, what is the world of 300,000 unconnected people with no common goal trying to fight against big tech and the governments of the world? What is that? How is that mass awakening going to happen? So are you a part of this 100,000? Are you just cruising through life, or are you playing a character to appease other people? Do you know all this, but you're still playing the character game? And no matter what, you can spread this information, and you might lose some friends. It might hurt your business. There might be a decline for a while, but then things are going to start to get better because you are in alignment with the truth and an accurate perception of the reality. You don't just know it, you're living it, and living it is the only way this awakening will happen. It's not voting for your politician. It's finding it within yourself and then sharing it with others. And so I'm going to have another article about this also. It's like, what do you do if you're a day oneer? Like, what if you do if you're a beginner and you have no idea where to start? And I'm going to have an article on Savvy Zen soon and a video talking about this because I understand this might be overwhelming. Like, this could get crazy. So I would just say there are many options to learn. And the best thing you can do is just start. Like, the best thing you can do is just start diving in. And I would say reading, spending time in nature, reflection upon yourself and your own psychology, and learning the tech skills to spread this information are easy ways to start. Just, getting into that, like leaning in just a little bit. Like, you don't need to start now, but you're a Soul-Ja, and we need you in the Soul-Ja army of light. And the mass awakening isn't happening today, but it could happen. And to conclude, this is what I tell a lot of people. Like, people don't want to live in ignorance. People don't want to live in pain. People don't want to have to sit in office stalls and get crinkled up and have herniated discs. They don't want that. They don't want to be confused about God and believe in these religions, but that's all they ever had access to. They never even had an opportunity to learn. And if you can show them that slowly, if you can help them lean into those things, they're going to start to feel good. They're going to become less confused. They're going to have more clarity. And then they'll shift like that. It's so easy to shift them. It was so hard to give them there. It took a lifetime of programming, but it takes probably only a couple months of shifting them the other way, reprogramming, to help them open up to these new ideas. So that is it for the presentation, everybody. Let me know what you guys think. I know this was a very opinionated one, but I just want to say that no matter where you are, just start to lean into it. Start to lean into this awakening. It can happen. I know it's going to happen. I'm here. I'm trying to be a catalyst. I'm trying to be the one speaking to you because you have a unique gift that you have to give to the world, man. Or lady, woman, no gender, whatever. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. This is Ian Cadnack from SavvyZen.com. Peace.